August 25, 1972, Kera, Japan, in the Kochi prefecture on the island of Shikoku. A 13-year-old boy by the name of Michio Seo is on his way home from school when he spots something strange in a nearby rice field. A small object seemed to be floating a few feet above the rice paddies. The object, no bigger than a softball, moved back and forth as Michio watched in amazement. Not understanding what he was seeing, he moved in to get a closer look. As he approached the small object, it stopped in midair and projected a blinding light. Fearful for his life, he turned and ran from the strange object, not stopping until he reached his house. Still curious as to what the object could have been, he confided in his friends about his experience. They soon convinced him that they should go back and investigate. 4 hours later, the young teens arrived at the rice field where the object was first seen. Much to everyone's surprise, the object was still there. Hovering approximately 18 meters away, the object looked like a small metal hat or bell. The boys watched in wonder as the object moved from one end of the field to the other as the sun slowly set in the background. Once dusk was upon them, they noticed that the object began to emit pulsating colors. One boy defiantly moved within feet of the object when it suddenly stopped and immediately began producing a deafening clicking sound. The teens quickly turned and ran towards home. Scared by what they had witnessed, the group decided to stay clear of the field for a while, but after a few days, curiosity once again brought them back, but the object was no longer there. Determined, the boys staked out the field, this time armed with a camera, in hopes of the object's return. They were not disappointed. 4 days later, the group approached the field when they noticed something lying on the ground. It was the metal object they had seen before. One of the teens smartly snapped a picture of the item. As if sensing the flash from the camera, the object quickly lifted off the ground. The group, now frozen with fear, stood and watched as the object began pulsating with light and then dropped back to the ground. One of the teens, without thinking, picked up the object. He would later say that it felt as if it had something moving inside it. They quickly put it in a plastic bag and into a backpack for safekeeping. Once home, they examined the mysterious object more carefully. On the bottom, they found what appeared to be engravings of waves and 2 bird-like symbols, one of which was intersected by an unidentifiable object. The next day, they took the object to one of the fathers of the teens, a Dr. Mutsi Fujimoto, who was the director of the Center for Scientific Education in the city of Kochi. Dr. Fujimoto examined the object, but could not readily identify it. Having not seen it levitate, he thought the boys had simply found some trinket alongside the road and thus dismissed it as such. Dr. Fujimoto would later be quoted as saying, "One of my biggest scientific regrets is not having examined the object more closely when I had the chance." Dismayed, the boys placed the object on a shelf, but in 2 days' time the object had mysteriously disappeared. Not knowing what had happened to it, on a hunch they went back to the rice field and found the object once again hovering in midair. Over the course of the next several weeks, many, including Dr. Fujimoto, witnessed the object time and again. Determined to capture it once more, the boys devised a plan. They noticed it never appeared when it was raining. Armed with a bucket of water and wet rags, they returned to the field. As they approached, they saw the object once again on the ground, humming. They quickly covered it with wet rags and turned it over to pour water into the holes on the bottom. Immediately, the object began to make a loud noise along with what sounded like sparks emanating from inside. Once home, they took more photos and created drawings to study. Wanting to know how it worked, they tried to find a way to open the item, but to no avail. They even took a hammer to the object, but could not even make a mark. Aside from the strange engravings, the only other information they could gather was obtained by looking through the holes on the bottom, where they claimed to have seen what appeared to be complicated electronics. The group thought it best to take the object back to Dr. Fujimoto so he could confirm what the boys had seen through the holes. In order not to lose the object, they placed it in a container of water and inside a canvas bag. Worried the object might escape, they tied the canvas bag closed with a rope and looped it around the wrist of one of the boys as they rode their bikes to Dr. Fujimoto's house. Halfway to their destination, the boy in charge of the bag came to an abrupt stop. He claimed that he felt the rope tug sharply. Fearful of the worst, the boys untied the rope, opened the bag, and pulled out the container of water, only to find the object had vanished. They had all witnessed it being placed into the container and into the bag. It never left their side as the bag was tied up, and even while they were on their bikes. It simply and inexplicably had vanished. Over the months, the boys would attempt to capture the object again and again, but with no success. As one of the boys said, the object seemed to have learned from its past mistakes. Over the years, others would also report seeing the object in the same field, but to date, the Kera object has yet to be explained, making the case one of the most enigmatic in history.